Okay, fine, I'm going to cover architecture photography, but no promises. I'm gonna do things very, very differently because A, I don't like to work like anyone else. I want you guys to see something today that is very different in terms of my approach to architecture photography. It's something that I've been doing for quite a long time now, and it might sound and look super unusual, but believe me, you get some really, really cool content with it. But before we get into any of that, I just want to quickly thank today's video sponsor, PPA, the Professional Photographers of America. If you're ready to join PPA's family of over 30,000 photographers, including myself, you'll have access to their ever-increasing educational library, plus all of PPA's marketing, data loss protection, equipment insurance, contracts, and community benefits. How many of you actually have coverage on your equipment? I mean, this is something to me is super bizarre when I talk to photographers and filmmakers and I ask them this question and they say I don't. And I'm like, why would you spend thousands of dollars and not have proper coverage? This is where PPA is super, super beneficial to you. They help guide you in better understanding your photography business, but also educate you in ways that can help improve your production and post-production skills. Most importantly, as a PPA member, you'll also get access to their online tutorials on photography and business. With over 900 individual classes and over 150 qualified instructors, PPA makes lifelong learning super easy with really unique pieces of content. So don't waste any time, go to the link in my description below and save $25 off of your PPA membership today. Alright guys, so back to architecture photography. So what is the spin that I'm talking about? Well, I have to say, this sounds super crazy, but for a very long time now, I've been going in my car, driving around the city, not even leaving my car, and taking a lot of the pictures that I've shared with you guys. I know this sounds super bizarre, but I do it in the safest way possible. When I'm driving, my eyes are on the road. I'm focused, I park my car on the side of the street where I'm actually legally allowed to park. And then I scope around in my vehicle, and I open the sunroof or my window, and I try to observe and create the content I need. This is a really unique way to create content because of the mere fact that you're on the road and you're seeing a completely different perspective than if you were walking on the sidewalk. I'm not going to talk about this much further, so let's get out of my place and go hit the road. Finally on the road. I try to find every excuse sometimes not to go out, just because right now it's kind of tricky times, really busy in downtown Toronto because it's summer. The weather is really nice today, but the goal here, as you guys already know, is to show you guys an in-depth look at how I go about shooting architecture and to give you guys my eye perspective on architecture photography. And what better place to do it than my own city, of course, because the architecture in Toronto is phenomenal and it's constantly expanding and growing, and there's a lot to photograph here. So yeah, I'll see you guys in a minute. I really like this building. It's always really difficult to shoot on the Canon R5, and I have the 24-70mm. Reason why I want the 24-70mm so I can have something I can zoom in and then get the wide angle in case I need to crop into the image at all. What really strikes me about this building is the amount of windows and the way that they're kind of just like pulling your attention towards one side. And that's one thing I love about architecture, that it can really move you. It has this sort of rhythm or harmony to it. So that when you're capturing it from different angles, you can create this really unique kind of composition. And this kind of stuff makes for some beautiful desktop backdrops. It's great for giving your work a palette or telling a story and showing some more context.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay, you're supposed to be there. Yes, we have a couple walking by. Okay, cool. Would have been nice if they were walking alone, but I can always Photoshop that person out. And you guys can see the light right there.
Yeah.
Breaks up. Maybe if we drive up a little bit more, we'd be able to get a shot. Cyclists, yes. another shot opportunity. This time we have a very nice look up, and thankfully we have, yes, street parking. You can open it up and get your camera ready and get a really cool look up shot. One thing to pay attention to when you're shooting any look up shot, I usually put my focus on the tip of the building so that I know that it's in, obviously, sharpness. Being on the road, sometimes you see things differently than when you're walking on the sidewalk. Right now, if you look straight ahead, you're just kind of seeing the architecture building, but if you look up, you get this really cool pull and focus on that building straight ahead of us. And I think that can make for a really fun shot. A lot of people say that this reminds them of the Flatiron Building in New York City. Kind of does look like the Flatiron Building in terms of the cover. The facade, sorry, I mean. It's a neat structure. And then you can also do a look up. Boom, boom. Not bad. But I think we should keep moving forward because there's probably better shots. I think I am content with the photos that we captured. They look sweet. Now all we have to do is go back and do the post-production process. So let's head back to my place. Alright guys, welcome back to my place. I've already gone ahead and uploaded all the images that I took onto Lightroom. But I've gone ahead and selected the images that I want to work with. There's obviously a variety. I want to focus on the things that really make my photo stand out, which is how I compose my images in terms of composition or in terms of what I'm actually focusing on in the image itself. There's key little things that I like to include in my images to make them stand out. Now I'm going to use one particular filter that I really like using. I've used it so many times in the past. Some of you might recognize it, some of you might not. If you do have my fall preset pack, it's included in there. It's called Valley. I love Valley because it makes certain parts and certain colors of the image pop. As you guys can see already, the clouds are hypnotizing. And the architecture building itself is still there. It's very prominent, it's still in focus, and you're able to still visualize it. But the clouds here are playing a key role in grabbing your attention. Now, for something like this, you don't need to worry about orientation, but in simple terms, I think that it's very important for you to go in and just to really clarify certain parts of the image. So I usually brush around the architecture itself and just give it a lot more structure. I lighten it up just a tad bit, give it more contrast and clarity. This makes sure that the building itself is in focus and that it's actually the most prominent part of the image, even though it's competing with the background, which is the clouds. So there you have the first image. Super simple, very nice, clouds dancing around architecture, which would be the title of it. The next image is next to it, and I think this is a very good example again of this whole focusing aspect of your architecture. And you have to really think about the externalities, and you really have to pay attention to how external elements are interacting with your pieces of architecture. So I'm gonna go in and tweak it just a little bit. Like I said before, architecture is the focus, so we wanna give it a little bit more exposure and clarity, and so that it's not competing with the clouds, but the clouds are a component of the image itself. So this is ultimately what you're left with. Super simple, clean shot. The next photo I want to talk to you guys about is that whole idea and concept of the unexpected. When you're shooting and something just randomly comes in your way and you have to kind of work with it, sometimes that's where the most beautiful pieces of work are created. So we're gonna go ahead and apply the filter. And as you guys can see, this filter, it works tremendously well with architecture photos. It really just like right away creates that contrast. It does a seamless kind of edit on the image, and particularly with architecture photos, I feel like it creates a really unique dynamic. So we're gonna crop in, and my focus here is on the architecture building, and particularly that I really love that golden light that's kind of just like breaking into the image on the side. So I want to emphasize it a little bit, and the best way to do that again is using that brush tool, going in that area, maybe giving it a little bit more exposure, You're gonna increase the contrast, the sharpness. And then for the rider, you're gonna wanna give them a lot more emphasis. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna expose their helmet a little bit more. I believe it's like a nice blue tint. You guys see that? And then it doesn't even, it works nice to even just go in and giving the person a little bit more exposure, so you can see that there's a cyclist kind of just running by. When you're finished editing, you're kind of left with something like this. And I love this. This to me is a very nice image. It articulates the architecture. It shows you that the person or the photographer was thinking outside the box and trying to compose an image that is very unique. The next image is all about that idea and concept of having a larger image and really cropping in and using it. And this is something I've been practicing for a very long time, where I'm able to utilize different parts of an image. So I want to show you guys what it does when you just literally go in and you crop an image more and you dive deep into it, and you're able to kind of create a more dynamic image with higher contrast. So we're going to give one side exposure, and then we're going to give the other side a darker feel to it. And a nice way to create contrast, of course, is manipulating the warm and cooler tones. And if you feel like one's emphasized too much, you can always desaturate just a tad bit. Ultimately, you're left with a unique image that stands out. It looks purposefully done. Next image is this one. This one in particular, I'm not even focusing on the architecture too much. When the filter is applied, you'll notice that it creates this really ambient contrast in the sky, and I love that. And I think the best way to go in and really articulate the architecture is just to give the architecture a little bit of highlight and exposure on certain parts of the facade. So you're creating this really almost gothic-y feeling to the architecture itself. But you have to be very careful. I mean, I'm not taking my time right now, but you want to take your time with this and make sure that you're doing it the best you can, so that it does still look pretty realistic. And then you can always go back in and choose the colors and brighten them up and give them more exposure and saturation, and of course manipulate the hue. But ultimately you're left with this extremely moody photo, and it still focuses on the architecture, but now you're creating this really dynamic kind of control in the atmosphere. I love reflections on architecture buildings, and that's where I'm going to focus on. So with this photo, actually I could crop it into different photos. The first could be of the architecture reflection, so something like this. The other one could be a minimalistic photo, and the way that you create minimalism is by focusing on just one thing in the photo, which would be, I guess, this light post right here. But right now I want to just focus on the reflection aspect of it. And once you have that, you want to just make sure that your angles are all proper. For this one, I'm going to desaturate the yellows just a tad bit. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to just expose more of these windows. It's crazy, but your attention to detail is what makes your images stand out more. I think it's very important as a photographer to pay attention to things, even when you're shooting, but most importantly when you're actually doing the post-production process. So ultimately you're left with something like this. And of course, again, this is me just doing rapid kind of edits, but so now if you look at all these images together collectively, you see a lot of commonality, you see a consistency, there's a flow and a charm to them, and a unique character that makes them all kind of unique in their own ways. So I'm going to export these and show them to you in a second. So there you have it, guys, my little spin on architecture photography. I hope that you guys learned a few bits of information from this video. I know PPA was mentioned, and I definitely think you guys should definitely take advantage of that membership and join me in it. But in terms of architecture photography, no matter how your approach is, it's always unique to your abilities and the way that you want to approach and share your perspective. For me, it's always been a challenge to really demonstrate outside of the box thoughts and capture moments that are very different, and obviously perspectives that are not, very common. And sometimes that means finding new ways and strategies around it. And I challenge you guys to do the same. So share with me your architecture photos, tag me and stuff. I really want to see what you guys get up to. And like always, remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys all very soon. Peace.